Like, subscribe, and turn on notification for more amazing video. Respect!
Alien billionaire spots poor human with the bracelet he gifted someone long ago. Evan Fuller wiped the sweat from his brow, leaving a streak of engine grease across his forehead. The massive docking bay of Andromeda Station hummed with activity. Ships landing and departing, cargo being loaded and unloaded, the constant chatter of 1,000 different languages. "Hey, Earth boy!" a gravelly voice called out. Evan turned to see Krill, his draconian supervisor, waving a data pad. "Got a special job for you. High priority. Some fancy-pants billionaire needs help with a heavy container. Paying triple." Evan's eyes widened. Triple pay meant he could finally fix the coolant system in his cramped quarters. Where and when? Bay 94. Now. Krill tossed him a security badge. "Don't screw it up. This guy owns half the station." Evan nodded, tucking the badge into his pocket. As he made his way through the labyrinthine corridors of Andromeda Station, he couldn't help but marvel at how far he'd come from the mining colonies of Mars. 5 years of hard labor, saving every credit, and he'd finally made it to the gateway to the stars. Not that his life was much easier here, still scraping by, still breaking his back for the wealthy, but at least he had options now. The security checkpoint at Bay 94 was manned by 2 stern-faced Vespian guards, their compound eyes scanning him suspiciously as he flashed his badge. "Arms up," one chittered, running a scanner over Evan's muscular frame. The white tank top he wore clung to his chest, damp with sweat from a long shift. His dark work pants, reinforced with metal inserts at the knees and thighs, bore the scars of countless repair jobs. "You're clear," the guard finally said, stepping aside. Bay 94 was different from the utilitarian loading docks Evan usually worked in. The floor gleamed with polished stone, and elegant light fixtures cast a warm glow over the space. A sleek, midnight blue spacecraft dominated the bay, clearly a private vessel, its hull adorned with subtle gold accents that caught the light. A small group of well-dressed aliens stood near a large metal container. One of them, taller than the rest, turned as Evan approached. Even from a distance, Evan could tell this was the billionaire. The alien's smooth blue skin had the lustrous quality that came only from the most expensive genetic enhancements. He wore a dark blue blazer with intricate gold embroidery that probably cost more than Evan would make in a year. "Mr. Talus, this is the mechanic," a slender female alien with turquoise skin said, gesturing toward Evan. Arkin Talus nodded dismissively, barely glancing at Evan. "The container needs to be moved into my ship's cargo hold. It contains artifacts that are extremely fragile, so I need someone with physical capabilities rather than droids." Evan approached the container, assessing its size and weight. "No problem, sir. I'll have it secured in no time." As he reached for the container's control panel, the sleeve of his tank top rode up, exposing the bracelet on his wrist. It was a simple thing, a band of tarnished metal with a single stone that caught the light with an unusual brilliance. Arkin Talus froze, his eyes widened, fixed on Evan's wrist. The conversation around him faded as he stared at the bracelet, a look of shock transforming his composed features. "Where?" Talus's voice cracked. He cleared his throat and tried again. "Where did you get that bracelet?" Evan glanced down, confused by the sudden attention. "This? It was my mother's." Talus stepped forward, his movements stiff, almost mechanical. His slender blue fingers reached out, hovering just above the bracelet, not quite touching it. "May I?" Puzzled but not wanting to offend a potential source of more work, Evan extended his arm. Talus's fingers brushed against the metal band, tracing the intricate pattern etched into its surface. The stone at its center pulsed with a soft light at his touch. "This is impossible," Talus whispered, more to himself than to Evan. His eyes, a striking amber color against his blue skin, searched Evan's face with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. "Your mother, what was her name?" "Sarah," Evan replied, increasingly confused. "Sarah Fuller." Talus stepped back as if struck. "And your father?" "Never knew him," Evan said with a shrug. "Mom never talked about him. Look, is there a problem with the bracelet? It's all I have left of her." Talus seemed to remember himself, straightening his posture and regaining his composure with visible effort. No problem. It's just, Unusual craftsmanship. I'm something of a collector. He turned to his assistant. Lana, please escort Mr. Fuller, Evan Fuller. Please escort Mr. Fuller to my private office after he's finished with the container. I'd like to discuss a potential employment opportunity. The turquoise-skinned woman nodded, her silver eyes betraying a hint of surprise. Of course, Mr. Tallis. As Tallis walked away, his steps hurried and uneven. Evan turned to Lana. What was that all about? She shook her head, her expression carefully neutral. I've worked for Mr. Tallis for 3 years, and I've never seen him react that way to anything. She glanced at the bracelet. Whatever that is, it's important to him. Evan looked down at the bracelet, the stone now dormant again. It had been his mother's most prized possession. On her deathbed, ravaged by the Mars colony plague, she'd pressed it into his hand. Never take it off, she'd whispered. It will protect you when I can't. He'd thought it was just the delirium of fever, but he'd honored her wish. For 10 years, the bracelet had remained on his wrist, through mining accidents, bar fights, and hard labor. And now somehow, it had caught the attention of one of the wealthiest beings in the galaxy. Evan shook his head and turned his attention back to the container. Whatever Tallis wanted, it would have to wait until after the job was done. He'd learned long ago that in this universe, nothing came without a price, especially the interest of the rich and powerful. Evan finished securing the container in Tallis's cargo hold, his mind still racing with questions. The bracelet on his wrist felt suddenly heavier, as if weighted with unseen significance. He wiped his hands on a rag and turned to find Lana waiting for him, her silver eyes studying him with undisguised curiosity. Ready? She asked, her voice melodic with an accent he couldn't place. As I'll ever be, Evan replied, following her through the ship's opulent interior. So what's the deal with your boss? He looked like he'd seen a ghost. Lana's steps faltered slightly. Mr. Tallis is complicated. I've never seen him react that way to anyone, especially a human. What's that supposed to mean? She glanced at him, her turquoise skin catching the light. Let's just say he doesn't typically associate with humans. He avoids Earth and its colonies entirely. They reached an ornate door that slid open at Lana's approach. Tallis's private office was a study in understated luxury. Rare woods, genuine paper books, and artifacts from a dozen worlds. The billionaire himself stood with his back to them, staring out a viewport at the endless expanse of stars. Mr. Tallis, I brought Mr. Fuller, Lana announced. Tallis turned slowly. He'd composed himself since their encounter in the bay, but Evan could still see tension in the set of his shoulders. Thank you, Lana. Please wait outside. She hesitated, her eyes meeting Evan's for a moment longer than necessary. Something passed between them, a spark of connection, unexpected and electric. Then she nodded and left, the door closing behind her. Tallis gestured to a chair. Please sit. Would you like a drink? I have Earth whiskey. No thanks. Evan remained standing. I'd prefer you tell me what this is about. Tallis smiled faintly. Direct, like your mother. He moved to a cabinet and poured himself a glass of amber liquid. Sarah was never one for pleasantries either. Evan stiffened. You knew my mother? Knew her? Tallis swirled his drink. I loved her. The room seemed to tilt beneath Evan's feet. What? 28 Earth years ago, I was conducting business on Mars. Your mother was working as a translator for the colonial administration? Tallis's eyes grew distant. She was brilliant, fearless. She saw past what I was to who I was. We had 6 months together before my family discovered our relationship. Evan's throat went dry. And they were horrified. A Talesian heir involved with a human? Unthinkable. Bitterness crept into Tallis's voice. I was recalled home immediately. When I finally managed to return to Mars a year later, Sarah was gone. The administration said she'd resigned and left no forwarding address. She never mentioned you, Evan said flatly. Not once. How old are you, Evan? The question hung in the air between them. 27, Evan answered, already seeing where this was heading. Tallis nodded slowly. I gave Sarah that bracelet the night before I was forced to leave. It contains a rare stone from my homeworld, a bonding stone. In my culture, it symbolizes a lifelong connection. He set down his glass. I believe you are my son. The words hit Evan like a physical blow. He sank into the chair, his legs suddenly unable to support him. That's impossible. Is it? You have her eyes, but that shade of blue. Talus gestured vaguely. Talesian genes are dominant in some ways, recessive in others. Your height, your build, those are human traits. But your eyes, the structure of your facial bones, those are mine. Evan's mind reeled. His father, the mysterious figure his mother had refused to discuss, standing before him in alien flesh. It was too much to process. I need some air, he muttered, rising abruptly. Talus made no move to stop him. Of course. Take time to consider what I've said, but please don't leave the station. I've only just found you. Evan nodded stiffly and headed for the door. It slid open to reveal Lana waiting in the corridor. Her expression shifted from professional detachment to concern when she saw his face. Are you all right? She asked softly. No, he admitted. I'm really not. Come with me, she said, touching his arm gently. The contact sent a surprising warmth through him. I know somewhere quiet. She led him through a series of corridors to a small observation deck, mercifully empty. The vast sweep of the Andromeda Galaxy spread before them, a swirl of stars and cosmic dust. It helps me think, Lana explained, gesturing to the view, when everything gets too complicated. He says he's my father, Evan blurted out. He says he loved my mother. Lana's silver eyes widened. That explains a lot, actually. What do you mean? The way he's avoided humans all these years. The collection of Earth artifacts he keeps hidden. The fact that he's never bonded with anyone, despite family pressure. She shook her head. I always thought it was just cultural snobbery, but it was grief. Evan ran a hand through his hair. I don't know what to do with this. Lana moved closer, her proximity sending his pulse racing in a way that had nothing to do with his current crisis. What do you want to do? Right now, Evan looked at her, suddenly aware of how the starlight played across her turquoise skin, how her form-fitting suit accentuated every curve. Right now, I want to forget about all of this for a while. Something changed in her eyes, a recognition, a reciprocal heat. I think I can help with that, she murmured, her hand finding his. As their lips met, Evan knew he was crossing a line that couldn't be uncrossed. But with the universe shifting beneath his feet, Lana's touch was the only thing that felt real. Hours later, Evan lay beside Lana in her quarters, the soft, ambient lighting casting a gentle glow across her turquoise skin. His mind was still reeling from the day's revelations, but for a brief, precious moment, he had found escape in her arms. You're thinking too loudly, Lana murmured, tracing patterns on his chest. Evan smiled despite himself. Sorry, it's not every day you find out your father is an alien billionaire. And it's not every day I break about a dozen Talesian protocols, she replied with a mischievous glint in her silver eyes. Fraternizing with a client's son? Scandalous. Is that what we're calling it? Fraternizing? Evan caught her hand, bringing it to his lips. Lana's skin flushed a deeper shade of turquoise. Humans are so intense. I've never experienced anything like this. Is that good or bad? Definitely good, she whispered, leaning in to kiss him again. Talesian men are all restraint and calculation. You're? She searched for the word. Raw, authentic. Evan laughed. That's a diplomatic way of saying impulsive and rough around the edges. I like your edges, she said, running her fingers along the contours of his muscular arm. They're honest. A soft chime interrupted them. Lana frowned, reaching for her comm device on the bedside table. Her expression darkened as she read the message. What is it? Evan asked. We need to go. Now. She was already moving, gathering her scattered clothes. That was from Nix, our security chief. Someone accessed the station's surveillance network and downloaded footage from the observation deck. Evan felt a cold knot form in his stomach. You mean? Yes, us. She tossed him his shirt. And they've already transmitted it off station. Who would care enough to? Think, Evan, Lana cut him off, her voice tight with urgency. You're Arkan Talus's newly discovered son. That makes you heir to one of the largest fortunes in the galaxy, and I'm his most trusted confidant, with access to all his business dealings. The implications hit Evan like a physical blow. They're going to use it against him. Against us. Worse, Lana said, now fully dressed and checking a small blaster she'd retrieved from a hidden compartment. Nick says there's chatter on secure channels. The Trex family has put a bounty on your head. The Trex? Who are they? Talesian rivals of your father. They were the ones who forced him to leave your mother all those years ago. Lana handed him the blaster. They've maintained a vendetta against Arcan for decades. The idea of a half-human heir to the Talos fortune would be unacceptable to them. Evan took the weapon, its weight unfamiliar in his hand. So they want me dead because I'm half-human? They want you dead because you represent everything they fear. The dilution of Talesian bloodlines, the potential for humans to gain influence in their carefully controlled society. Lana's expression softened momentarily. And because you're living proof that your father defied them and loved a human woman? A sharp knock at the door made them both freeze. Lana motioned for silence, drawing her own weapon. She approached the door cautiously, checking the security feed. It's Arcan, she whispered, visibly relieved. She opened the door. Talos entered quickly, his usual composed demeanor replaced by tightly controlled panic. His eyes widened slightly at seeing Evan there, but he didn't comment on it. We've been compromised, he said without preamble. The Trex have dispatched assassins. They'll be here within hours. We know, Lana replied. They've obtained surveillance footage of... She hesitated. Of you two together. Yes, I'm aware. Talos's expression was unreadable. That's the least of our concerns right now. The footage was merely confirmation of what they already suspected, that I've found my son. Evan stepped forward. How did they know about me in the first place? I have a mole in my organization, Talos admitted grimly. Someone reported our meeting, and the Trex put the pieces together quickly. They've been watching me for years, waiting for any connection to your mother to resurface. So what now? Evan asked, surprised by his own calm. Perhaps years of surviving on the fringes had prepared him for this moment. Now we run, Talos said simply. My ship is prepped and ready. We have a safe house in the Pleiades cluster where we can regroup and plan our next move. Evan felt a surge of frustration. Run? That's your solution? I've spent my whole life running from one bad situation to another. I'm done with that. Evan, Lana interjected, the Trex aren't some station thugs you can intimidate. They're one of the most powerful families in the Talesian Empire, with resources that make even your father's fortune look modest. She's right, Talos said. This isn't about pride or standing your ground. The Trex won't stop until you're dead, or worse, captured and used as leverage against me. Evan looked between them, these two aliens who had upended his life in the span of a day. One claiming to be his father, the other having become his lover. Both now telling him his very existence was a threat to a powerful alien dynasty. Fine, he finally said, but I want answers. About my mother, about why she ran, about why she never told me about you. Everything. Talos nodded solemnly. You'll have them? I promise. But first we need to survive. As they moved toward the door, Lana's comm device chimed again. Her face paled as she read the message. They're already here, she whispered. A Trek strike team just docked at Bay 12. Talos's expression hardened. Then we have no time to waste. This way, Evan whispered, prying open an access panel near the floor of Lana's quarters. Maintenance tunnels run through the entire station. I've used them for years to get to jobs faster. Arcan looked skeptical. These aren't on any station schematics I've seen. That's because station management doesn't want people knowing about them, Evan replied, already lowering himself into the narrow opening. They're technically for emergency repairs only, but every mechanic and engineer knows about them. Lana followed without hesitation, her lithe form easily slipping through the opening. Arcan, looking distinctly uncomfortable at the undignified mode of escape, went last. The tunnel was cramped, barely a meter high and just wide enough for a person to crawl through. Pipes and conduits ran along the sides, occasionally hissing with steam or humming with electrical current. Stay close, Evan instructed, leading them forward. It's easy to get lost down here. And watch for the junction markers. Red means high-temperature pipes, blue is coolant, yellow is electrical. How do you know all this? Lana asked, her voice echoing slightly in the confined space. Evan glanced back with a grin that caught the dim emergency lighting. Human ingenuity. First week on the job, I was late 3 times because of the station's ridiculous layout. So I found a better way. Impressive, Arkin murmured, his elegant clothing already collecting grime from the tunnel floor. They crawled in a silence for several minutes, the only sounds their breathing and the occasional distant clang of station machinery. Evan led them through a complex series of turns, confidently navigating what seemed like an endless maze. "Hold up," he said suddenly, raising a hand. "Junction ahead. We need to be careful here. It's a high-traffic area for maintenance droids." As if on cue, they heard the whirring of mechanical servos approaching from a connecting tunnel. Evan pressed himself against one wall, gesturing for the others to do the same. A maintenance droid, spider-like with multiple appendages carrying tools, scuttled past their junction without pausing. "That was close," Lana whispered once it had gone. "Too close," Evan agreed. "They might be using the maintenance systems to track us. We need to move faster." They picked up their pace, Evan leading them deeper into the station's infrastructure. The tunnels gradually widened as they approached a central hub, eventually opening into a maintenance chamber large enough for them to stand. "We can rest here for a minute," Evan said, stretching his cramped muscles. "This is a junction point between sectors. We're about halfway to the emergency docking bays." Lana moved to his side, her hand finding his in the dim light. "You're amazing," she said softly. "I've lived on this station for 3 years and never knew these tunnels existed." "That's humans for you," Evan replied with a wink. "We're always finding the back doors." Arkin was examining a station schematic on the wall. "The Trex team will be searching the main corridors and transport hubs," he said, "but they're thorough. It won't take them long to realize we've gone off-grid. Then we don't stay in one place too long," Evan said. He moved to a control panel and began typing rapidly. "I can access the station's security feeds from here. Let's see where our friends are." The small screen flickered to life, showing various camera angles from around the station. Evan cycled through them quickly until he found what he was looking for, a group of 6 Talesian males in sleek black armor, moving methodically through the residential sector. "That's them," Arkin confirmed grimly. "Trex elite guards. They won't stop until they complete their mission." "They're heading toward your quarters," Evan noted. "We've got maybe 20 minutes before they figure out we've gone into the tunnels." "What's the plan once we reach the emergency docks?" Lana asked. "I have a scout ship registered under a shell company," Arkin replied. "It's small, fast, and untraceable. We can use it to reach my safe house in the Pleiades." Evan turned from the monitor, his expression serious. "Before we go any further, I need to know something. These Trex people, they forced you to leave my mother because she was human?" Arkin's face tightened. "The Trex family controls the Talesian High Council. They've maintained power for centuries by enforcing strict genetic purity laws. When they discovered my relationship with your mother, they threatened to destroy my entire family line if I didn't end it." "So you just left her?" Evan's voice hardened. "I tried to take her with me," Arkin said quietly. "She refused. Said she wouldn't live her life as a fugitive. I left the bracelet with her as a promise I'd return when it was safe." His eyes found Evan's. "When I came back a year later, she was gone. I searched for years, but she'd disappeared completely." "She was pregnant," Evan said. "With me. She must have known what would happen if the TREX found out." "She was protecting you," Lana interjected softly. "Both of you." A sudden alarm blared through the maintenance chamber, the lights shifting to a pulsing red. "They've locked down the station," Arkin said grimly. "They know we're in the tunnels." Evan turned back to the control panel. "I can override the security protocols for this sector. Create a diversion." His fingers flew over the keys, the interface responding to his expert touch. "There. I've triggered an environmental alert in Sector 7. That should draw their attention for a few minutes." Lana watched him work, admiration clear in her silver eyes. "I've never seen anyone hack a station system that quickly." "Mars colony upbringing," Evan replied with a shrug. "When the air filters fail regularly, you learn to bypass security pretty damn fast." He finished the last command sequence and turned back to them. "Ready? We need to move now." As they prepared to enter the next tunnel, Lana caught Evan's arm, pulling him close for a brief, intense kiss. "For luck?" she whispered against his lips. "I thought Talesians didn't believe in luck," he murmured back. "I'm learning to appreciate human customs," she replied with a smile that sent heat coursing through him, despite their dire situation. Arkin cleared his throat. If you two are quite finished, we have assassins to evade. Evan grinned, the adrenaline of danger and the lingering warmth of Lana's touch fueling his confidence. Right, follow me, and stay quiet. Sound carries in these tunnels. As he led them deeper into the station's hidden pathways, Evan felt a strange sense of purpose. For the first time in his life, he wasn't just surviving, he was fighting for something. For answers about his past, for a future with Lana, and perhaps even for a chance to know the father he never had. The bracelet on his wrist seemed to pulse with warmth, as if responding to his resolve. Whatever secrets it held, whatever dangers lay ahead, Evan was determined to face them head-on. After all, he was human, and if there was one thing humans excelled at, it was beating impossible odds. They were nearing the final stretch of tunnels leading to the emergency docking bay when Evan heard it, a faint metallic clanging ahead. He raised his hand, signaling for Arkin and Lana to stop. Someone's coming, he whispered. The sound grew louder, not the precise rhythmic movement of a maintenance droid, but the irregular steps of a person. Evan drew the blaster Lana had given him, motioning for them to press against the tunnel walls. A beam of light swept around the corner, followed by a figure in station maintenance coveralls. Evan tensed, finger hovering over the trigger. Hello, a gruff voice called out. Is someone there? The beam of light found Evan's face. He squinted, raising his hand to shield his eyes. Wait, Fuller? Evan Fuller? The light lowered, revealing a weathered human face with a thick gray beard. What the hell are you doing in the tunnels during lockdown? Evan lowered his weapon slightly, recognition dawning. Holt? Chief Engineer Holt? The older man stepped closer, his eyes widening as he noticed Arkin and Lana. Holy shit! Is that Arkin Talus? He glanced between them. What's going on here? It's complicated, Evan replied cautiously. We're in a bit of trouble. Holt snorted. No kidding. The whole station's crawling with Talesian security forces looking for you three. He studied Evan's face for a moment, then nodded decisively. Come with me. Now. Why should we trust you? Lana asked, her hand still on her weapon. Because I knew Sarah Fuller, Holt replied simply, and I owe her. Evan felt like he'd been punched in the gut. You knew my mother? She was part of the original engineering team that built this station, Holt said. Brilliant woman. Taught me half of what I know about integrated systems. He gestured impatiently. We can talk more, but not here. My workshop is just ahead. It's shielded from station sensors. Arkin and Lana looked to Evan, who nodded after a moment's hesitation. They followed Holt through a series of increasingly narrow passages until they reached what appeared to be a dead end. The engineer pressed his palm against a seemingly ordinary section of wall, and a hidden door slid open. Inside was a cluttered workshop filled with tools, spare parts, and various half-finished projects. Holt sealed the door behind them and activated a control panel. There. We're off the grid now. He turned to face them, his weathered face serious. You've got about 20 minutes before the next security sweep reaches this sector. You said you knew my mother, Evan pressed. When? How? Holt sighed, running a hand through his gray hair. 27 years ago, she came to the station when it was still under construction, part of the Earth Alliance engineering contingent, brilliant with systems integration. We worked together for about 8 months before she suddenly left. His eyes found the bracelet on Evan's wrist. She was wearing that when she arrived. Never took it off. Arkin stepped forward. Did she ever mention me? Not by name, Holt replied, but she talked about someone she'd left behind. Someone important. He moved to a storage cabinet and began rummaging through it. The thing is, she didn't just leave. She was preparing for something. What do you mean? Evan asked. Holt pulled out an old data drive. About a month before she disappeared, she started leaving encrypted messages throughout the station's mainframe. Said they were for her child someday. He looked at Evan. That would be you. Evan took the drive, turning it over in his hands. Why didn't you ever find me? Tell me about this? I tried, Holt said. After she left, I tracked her to Mars for a while, then lost her trail. Years later, I heard rumors about a Sarah Fuller who died in the colony plague. He shook his head. By then, I had no idea if she'd ever had a child or where that child might be. And then I showed up on the station, Evan said quietly. 5 years ago, Holt confirmed. I recognized the name when you applied for work, but I wasn't sure it was you until I saw the bracelet. Even then, I wanted to be certain before I approached you with this. He gestured to the drive. That contains the decryption key for her messages. She said only her child would be able to unlock it fully. Lana moved to Evan's side, her hand finding his. This could tell us why she ran, why she hid you all these years. Evan stared at the small device. How do I use it? It interfaces with the station's main computer, Holt explained, but you can't access that now, not with the Treks hunting you. He moved to a workbench and activated a small terminal. This is a standalone system. It won't give you everything, but it should at least decrypt the key message. Evan inserted the drive, and the screen flickered to life. A prompt appeared. Genetic verification required. Press your thumb to the scanner, Holt instructed. Evan did as he was told. The screen flashed, then displayed a single line of text. The bracelet is the key. Blood calls to blood. What does that mean? Lana asked, peering over Evan's shoulder. I think... Arkin stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the bracelet. May I? Evan hesitated, then extended his wrist. Arkin carefully turned the bracelet, revealing a small indentation on the underside of the stone. I always wondered why she was so insistent on keeping this with her, Arkin murmured. It's not just a bonding stone, it's a genetic key. He looked up at Evan. Press your thumb to the stone. Evan did so, and the stone began to glow with an inner light. A holographic display suddenly projected from it, showing a map of the station with a blinking point near the emergency docks. It's a navigation marker, Arkin said, wonder in his voice. Sarah must have hidden something there for you. We need to move, Holt said urgently, checking a security feed. The Treks team is sweeping this sector now. Is there another way to the emergency docks? Lana asked. Holt nodded. Service elevator, restricted access, but I can override it. He moved to a locker and pulled out a station security uniform. Put this on, Evan. If we're spotted, you're escorting these two as detainees. As Evan changed quickly, Holt handed him an official-looking badge. This will get you through the checkpoints. The dock you want is E7. It's rarely used, perfect for a quiet departure. Why are you helping us? Arkin asked. Holt's weathered face softened. Sarah saved my life during a decompression accident. Said I'd have the chance to return the favor someday. He clapped Evan on the shoulder. Guess today's that day. Evan finished buttoning the uniform jacket. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Holt replied grimly. You've still got to get past the Treks. They don't give up easily. Lana approached Evan, adjusting his collar with a small smile. You look good in uniform, she murmured, her fingers lingering against his neck. Despite the danger, Evan felt a surge of warmth at her touch. Save that thought for when we're safely away, he whispered back, enjoying the deepening turquoise of her blush. If you two are done flirting, Arkin said dryly, we have a ship to catch and assassins to avoid. Holt led them to a concealed door at the back of his workshop. This will take you directly to the service elevator. Good luck. He handed Evan a small communicator. If you make it out, contact me. I've got more of Sarah's messages stored offline. Evan nodded, suddenly overwhelmed by the connection to his mother's past. I will. As they prepared to leave, Holt added, Your mother was the smartest human I ever met. Whatever she hid for you, it must be important. The Treks wouldn't be hunting you this hard otherwise. What do you mean? Evan asked. Think about it, Holt replied. They're not just after you because you're Talos' son. They're terrified of what Sarah might have left behind, knowledge or technology that could threaten their power. He looked meaningfully at the bracelet. That's not just a pretty trinket. It's a key to something bigger. The service elevator descended rapidly toward the emergency docking level. Evan stood tall in his borrowed security uniform, Arkin and Lana positioned in front of him as supposed detainees. His hand rested on the blaster at his hip, ready for trouble. Remember, Evan said quietly, if we're stopped, let me do the talking. Lana glanced back at him, her silver eyes gleaming with a mixture of tension and something more intimate. You're enjoying this role a little too much, she whispered. Maybe I am, he replied with a quick grin that made her cheeks flush turquoise. Arkin cleared his throat. Focus, please. We're not safe yet. The elevator slowed and came to a stop. The doors slid open to reveal a dimly lit corridor marked with emergency signage. Evan checked both directions before ushering his prisoners forward. Dock E7 should be at the end of this corridor, he murmured, consulting the holographic map still faintly glowing from his bracelet. They moved quickly but cautiously, passing several empty docking bays. The emergency level was eerily quiet. Most of the station's security forces were focused on the main levels. When they reached E7, they found a sealed airlock with an ancient-looking access panel. The dock status indicator showed it as decommissioned. This can't be right, Lana said, examining the panel. This dock hasn't been used in years. That's exactly why my mother would choose it, Evan replied. He held his bracelet up to the access panel. The stone glowed brighter, and to their surprise, the panel lit up with a soft blue light. The airlock door slid open with a hiss. Beyond the airlock was a small, darkened docking bay. As they entered, motion sensors activated, illuminating a sleek vessel unlike anything Evan had ever seen. It was smaller than a standard shuttle, with an aerodynamic hull that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. No visible engine ports, no standard navigation lights, just smooth, flowing lines that hinted at technology far beyond current standards. What is that? Evan breathed. Arkin stepped forward, his expression one of disbelief. It's impossible. This is drift technology. Drift? Lana asked. Theoretical propulsion, Arkin explained, circling the vessel with growing excitement. It doesn't push against space. It slides between the fabric of reality. No fuel, no emissions, no detectable signature. He turned to Evan. The Trex family has suppressed this research for decades because it would end their monopoly on faster-than-light travel. And my mother somehow got her hands on a working prototype, Evan said, understanding dawning. That's why they're so desperate to find me. Not just because I'm your son, but because of what she might have left behind. He approached the ship and a hatch silently opened in response to his proximity. Inside was a cockpit with 3 seats and controls unlike any conventional spacecraft. A small data terminal blinked to life as they entered. Genetic signature recognized, a soft computerized voice announced. Welcome, Evan Fuller. A holographic image appeared above the terminal, a woman with Evan's blue eyes and determined expression. Sarah Fuller. If you're watching this, then you've found your way to me at last, the recording began. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you everything, Evan. It wasn't safe. The bracelet I gave you is more than a memento. It's the key to this ship and the technology it contains. Sarah's image looked directly at the camera, as if she could see them. After Arkan was forced to leave, I discovered I was pregnant. But I also discovered something else. The Trex family was developing technology that would give them absolute control over interstellar travel, and they were willing to eliminate anyone who threatened that power. I was working as a double agent, she continued, officially a translator for the colonial administration, but secretly gathering intelligence on Trex operations. When I found the plans for this prototype, I knew I had to secure it, but that made me a target. Evan watched, transfixed, as his mother's image explained how she'd stolen the prototype, hidden it on the still under construction Andromeda station, and then disappeared to protect both her unborn child and the revolutionary technology. This ship can change everything, Evan. The drift drive democratizes space travel. No more reliance on massive, expensive engines or rare fuels controlled by corporations. Anyone could travel anywhere. Sarah's expression hardened. That's why the Trex will never stop hunting for it, and why I had to make sure only you could find it. The recording ended with coordinates to a hidden base where Sarah had stored the complete technical specifications for the drift drive. She was a spy, Evan said softly. All those years on Mars, struggling to make ends meet, she was hiding in plain sight. A brilliant one, Arkan added, his voice thick with emotion. She outmaneuvered the most powerful family in the Teletian Empire. Lana had been examining the ship's systems. The drift drive is fully operational. We could leave right now, be halfway across the galaxy before the Trex even realize we're gone. A sudden alarm blared through the docking bay. On a security monitor near the airlock, they could see a team of Trex guards forcing their way through a nearby door. They found us, Arkin said grimly. We need to leave immediately. Evan slid into the pilot's seat, his hands hovering over the unfamiliar controls. "I don't know how to fly this thing." "The bracelet," Lana said urgently. "Your mother said it was the key." Evan placed his wrist against a glowing panel on the console. The stone in his bracelet pulsed, and the ship's systems came fully online. Knowledge flooded his mind, not just how to operate the vessel, but understanding of the drift technology itself. "Neural interface," he gasped. "The bracelet is transferring the knowledge directly to my brain." "Evan," Arkin warned, pointing to the monitor. The Trex team had breached the outer door and was approaching the airlock. "Hold on," Evan said, his fingers dancing across the controls with newfound expertise. The ship hummed to life, lifting slightly off the dock floor. Lana slipped into the seat beside him, her hand finding his for a brief, reassuring squeeze. "I knew there was something special about you the moment we met," she murmured. "Human ingenuity at its finest?" The docking bay doors began to open, revealing the star-filled void beyond. As the Trex team burst through the airlock, weapons raised, Evan engaged the drift drive. There was no violent acceleration, no roar of engines, just a subtle shift in the light around them, and suddenly the station was gone, replaced by the swirling colors of subspace. "We did it!" Evan breathed, leaning back in his seat. The neural interface had disengaged, leaving him with a lingering understanding of the ship's capabilities. "This technology, it changes everything." "The Trex family will come after us with everything they have," Arkin said, though his voice held more excitement than fear. "They can't allow this technology to become public." "Let them try," Evan replied with a confidence he'd never felt before. He looked at the coordinates his mother had left, a remote system far from Talesian influence. "We have the advantage now." Lana moved closer, her silver eyes reflecting the swirling colors of subspace. "What will you do with it?" Evan considered the question. With this technology, he could become wealthier than even Arkin. He could disappear to some remote corner of the galaxy. Or, "I'm going to finish what my mother started," he said finally. "Make this technology available to everyone. Break the monopoly on interstellar travel." He glanced at Arkin. "With your help, if you're willing." Arkin nodded slowly. "The Talus resources at your disposal." It's time someone stood up to the Trex family. As they plotted their course to Sarah's hidden base, Lana leaned against Evan's shoulder, her presence a comforting warmth. "Your mother would be proud," she whispered. "You're changing the future of space travel." "Humanity's gift to the galaxy," Evan replied with a smile, his fingers intertwining with hers. The bracelet on his wrist, the token of love between his parents, now revealed as so much more, glowed softly in the cabin's dim light, a beacon guiding them toward a new future. 6 months later, the headquarters of Fuller Drift Technologies sprawled across what had once been an abandoned mining outpost on the edge of the Pleiades cluster. Where rusted equipment and empty habitation domes had stood, gleaming facilities now hummed with activity. Workers of dozens of species moved purposefully between buildings, united in their mission to revolutionize space travel. Evan stood at the window of his office, watching a test flight of the latest drift drive model. The small vessel disappeared with barely a shimmer in the fabric of space. No flash, no thunderous acceleration, just elegant absence. He smiled, still amazed by how far they'd come in half a year. "Impressive, isn't it?" Lana's voice came from behind him. She slipped her arms around his waist, pressing against his back. "The Mark IV is 30% more efficient than the prototype." Evan turned in her embrace, taking in the sight of her. She'd abandoned her formal business attire for more practical clothing. Fitted jumpsuit with the MDT logo, her turquoise skin contrasting beautifully with the deep blue fabric. Their relationship had only deepened in the months since their escape from Andromeda Station, nights of passion giving way to something more profound. "The Trex representatives are here," she said, her silver eyes serious. "They're waiting in the conference room with your father." Evan nodded, straightening his jacket. "Let's not keep them waiting then." As they walked through the facility, employees nodded respectfully. It still felt strange to Evan. 6 months ago, he'd been a struggling mechanic, and now he led the most talked-about technology company in the galaxy. The transition hadn't been easy, but his practical experience and human adaptability had proven invaluable. The conference room fell silent as they entered. Arkan sat at one end of the table, his posture regal but relaxed. Opposite him sat three Talesians with the distinctive copper-tinted skin of the Trex family. Their expressions were carefully neutral, but Evan could sense their discomfort. "Mr. Fuller," the eldest Trex representative said, rising slightly, "thank you for agreeing to this meeting." "Lord Trex," Evan acknowledged, taking his seat, "you've come a long way to speak with us." "Indeed." The Talesian's eyes flicked to the bracelet still on Evan's wrist. "Recent events have forced us to reconsider our position." Evan exchanged a glance with Arkin, who nodded slightly. They'd been expecting this meeting for weeks, ever since MDT had successfully launched its first commercial drift drives. The technology was spreading rapidly, undermining the Trex monopoly on interstellar transportation. "We are prepared to offer terms," Lord Trex continued. "The Trex family will formally recognize you as Arkin Talus's legitimate heir and withdraw all outstanding concerns regarding your lineage." "You mean the bounty on my head," Evan said bluntly. The Talesian inclined his head. "As you say. In exchange, we propose a controlled release of the drift technology, a partnership between our families that would ensure stability in the transition." Evan leaned back, studying the alien across from him. 6 months ago, this same family had sent assassins to kill him, simply for existing. Now they were offering legitimacy and partnership. "And if I refuse, then the current disruption to the galactic economy continues," Lord Trex replied smoothly. "Many will suffer in the chaos of rapid technological change. Wars may erupt over control of the technology. Is that what your mother would have wanted?" At the mention of his mother, Evan felt Lana's hand squeeze his under the table. They shared a secret that even Arkan didn't yet know. "Actually," Evan said, "I think we should ask her directly." He pressed a button on the table console. A door at the far end of the room slid open, and a woman entered. Her hair was shorter and streaked with gray, her face lined with age and hardship, but her blue eyes, Evan's eyes, were sharp and clear. Sarah Fuller. Lord Trex shot to his feet. "Impossible! You died in the Mars colony plague." "Reports of my death were greatly exaggerated," Sarah replied with a thin smile. "A necessary deception, given the circumstances." Arkin stared at her, speechless for perhaps the first time in his life. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "Sarah?" She turned to him, her expression softening. "Hello, Arkin. It's been a long time." Evan watched his parents regard each other across decades of separation. 3 weeks ago, while reviewing data from Sarah's hidden base, Lana had discovered encrypted communications that suggested Sarah might still be alive. A discreet investigation led them to a remote human colony where she'd been living under an assumed name, monitoring the Trex family's activities from afar. Their reunion had been emotional. Tears, explanations, forgiveness. Sarah had explained how she'd faked her death when Evan was 17, knowing the Trex were closing in. She'd continued her work in secret, waiting for the right moment to release the drift technology. Now she turned her attention to Lord Trex. "Your family has maintained power through control and fear for too long. The drift technology doesn't belong to any one species or family. It belongs to everyone." "The chaos," Lord Trex began, "is exactly what you fear because it means loss of control," Sarah interrupted. "But humans thrive on chaos. We call it freedom." Evan stepped forward. "Here's our counteroffer. The Trex family publicly acknowledges the drift technology as the rightful intellectual property of MDT. In exchange, we establish an interspecies regulatory body to oversee its implementation, with representatives from all major galactic powers, including the Trex." "You would still control the technology," Lord Trex protested. "We would share it," Evan corrected, "under fair terms that prevent monopoly. The age of exclusive control over the stars is ending, Lord Trex. You can help shape what comes next, or you can be left behind." The Talesian's eyes narrowed. "And if we refuse?" Arkan, who had recovered his composure, spoke up. "Then tomorrow morning, the complete technical specifications for the drift drive will be transmitted to every major engineering facility in the galaxy. Your monopoly ends either way." A tense silence filled the room. Finally, Lord Trex sank back into his chair. "You leave us little choice." "On the contrary," Sarah said, "we're giving you the choice your family never gave others, the chance to be part of progress rather than standing in its way." After the Trex delegation departed, grudgingly agreeing to consider the proposal, Evan found himself alone with Lana on the facility's observation deck. Below them, workers were installing a drift drive in a massive colony ship that would soon carry settlers to previously unreachable star systems. "Your mother and father seem to be reconnecting," Lana observed, nodding toward a distant corner of the complex where Sarah and Arkin walked slowly, deep in conversation. 28 years is a lot to catch up on," Evan replied, "but they never stop loving each other. Some connections transcend time and space." Lana's silver eyes found his. "Like ours?" "Exactly like ours." He pulled her close, the warmth of her body against his a reminder of all they'd shared. Danger, passion, triumph. Who would have thought a simple bracelet could change so many lives? "It wasn't the bracelet," Lana murmured, her fingers tracing the line of his jaw. "It was you, your human resilience, your adaptability. You've changed the galaxy, Evan Fuller." As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky above them, Evan thought about the journey that had brought him here. From struggling mechanic to revolutionary, from lonely orphan to a man surrounded by family and love. All because his mother had been brave enough to defy an empire, and his father had loved enough to give her a token that would one day bring their son home. "Humanity's gift to the stars," he said softly, echoing words he'd spoken months ago. Lana smiled, her lips finding his as the first test ships of the new era streaked silently into the infinite beyond.